Welcome to the Smith Publicity, all things book marketing podcast. The best tips, insights, and advice from the best in the publishing industry.
Hello, and welcome to All Things Book Marketing. I'm your host, Michaela Della Monica. We're honing in on the topic of Instagram today, and in particular, Bookstagram. This niche community of Instagrammers who are avid readers and loyal book lovers who take visually stunning photos of books. I mean, this is a social media community that has me in awe of their creative ability to turn reading and their reading habits into an editorial piece of artwork. So I'm extremely excited to have with me today a Bookstagrammer influencer, Jenn Egan. And before I formally introduce her, if you're listening right now and you have an Instagram account, definitely check out her profile as we're talking. You can find her at Jenn Egan 26, JENNEGAN 26. So, Jenn, hi, and officially welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you in person today.
Hi, Michaela. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited to talk all things Bookstagram with you.
Absolutely, and I'm pretty sure that our listeners will definitely benefit from our conversation today. We've touched upon things about social media in general and have talked about the various platforms out there and definitely stressed the importance of having social media as an emerging author and really, talked a lot about Instagram. But today is really special because we have you here and you can speak in particular about Bookstagram and the Bookstagram community. So first, walk us through how you started. How did you start this all?
I've always been on Instagram since, it came about years and years ago, but never really focused on books. About 2 years ago, one of my favorite independent authors, her name's Taryn Fisher, she was talking about a book launch and how she had a friend who was this online Instagram book blogger. I had no clue that sort of thing existed. So I went and I searched. Her name was Ursula Urati, and I went and I just saw these gorgeous, gorgeous artistic photos of books and what she's reading and, cover reveals and all that. And I was just like, wow, I am a huge bookworm. I would love to do this. So really when I started, it was, random shots of me drinking coffee, reading a book, on my dining room table, very amateur, very just, I wanted to talk to people about what I was reading. And I find that on social media, because you can reach so many different people, it was easier to start that way than, a normal conversation with someone that, I know or something like that. So really, it was one person made one comment and it just opened up this whole doorway to, this secret world of Bookstagram that I never knew existed.
That's amazing. Yeah, because, most people, when Instagram came out and started to get so popular, they were bought by Facebook and all of that, people used it as a personal tool, capturing photos of their travels and of their favorite foods and, their dinners, which we all know, food is one of the popular things to post photos about. But now there's books and there's this whole world, like you said, it's this awesome world on Instagram. So for authors who already have an Instagram account and know the basics pretty much, what should they keep in mind when Instagramming?
I think for authors, they have a broader range of things they can do. They can have a very eclectic feed. Some Bookstagrammers are very, very strict about the theme they have. They want consistency with how every single photo needs to look the same. And some have a kind of, niche about that. That is what they have made their theme be. But I think with authors, they really can do so much. We want to see, behind the scenes stuff. What goes into you writing your book? Rough drafts, you sitting there, drinking coffee while you're reading somebody else's book. I want to see that you are a real life person because really, that puts us in touch with the authors a lot more. One of my favorite authors, actually, on Instagram, her name's Jenn McKinley. She writes cozy mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
She has this thing where she eats chocolate for breakfast all the time. And every time she posts a picture, like, oh no, another, like, bad breakfast decision. And it's something so simple and funny, but, you know, it kind of just, like, brings the author, like, down to your level, and you can relate to them. And, you know, she also shares, like, what she's currently reading, you know, different things like that. I really think that authors could use this to really broaden how to reach people, because, you know, it's one thing to see a dust jacket with someone's face on it, and you're like, okay, that's great, but, you know, I want to know who you are aside from just writing this book, or that, you know, you put your time into that.
Yeah, those are great tips, especially about themes. You know, other themes I think worth noting are the color schemes.
Yep.
I've seen some Bookstagrammers out there use the grayscale.
Yep.
And the other filters Instagram has, and stick to that filter,
Right.
So that it creates some sort of consistency and, you know, just creates their brand,
Right.
really. So walk us through some best practices for authors. You know, you've already gone through some tips with, you know, the basics to keep in mind.
Right.
But what are those extra level success tips that you have for them?
I mean, the most simple thing, quality photos. It doesn't have, you don't have to have a camera. You know, you can use your iPhone, your, you know, whatever cell phone you have, but, you know, take good photos. Make sure you have good lighting. Just, you know, sometimes it's the worst thing. You go and it's an awesome photo, but it's dark and no one can read it. You know, simple things like that. Especially for authors, I think hashtags are very, very important. You can, I mean, I've seen it with certain book releases, and I love it, that they create a hashtag that goes with that book. So every time there's a post about it, you know, whether it's just a cover reveal or, you know, an excerpt, anything like that, someone will use that hashtag. So then you can go and just search and have, you know, the group of everything you're looking for. I think for authors that's really important. A few other things, you know, interact with whether they're your readers or not, but interact with other bookworms. You know, specifically readers, if you see people that are even just reading books you like personally as an author, interact. Just say like, hey, you know, thanks for sharing my book, or I love that book too, you know.
Yeah, it's not just about posting a photo.
Exactly. The interaction is huge.
And logging off.
Yes.
Exactly.
You know, like stick around. Like the one rule I learned, and I think is really important, after you post, within the first like 15 minutes, go and just even go through the hashtags you used and just comment on some pictures. Talk to, you know, whether it's just liking, dropping a little comment, anything. But, you know, that engagement, then people want to go to your profile and be like, hey, look what, you know, all the things that they've done. And that really starts, you know, almost like a conversation, if you will, with other people. I mean, I found so many authors on Instagram from people sharing and just seeing, like, you know, different photos that they've posted, that they've commented on, and then it makes me kind of go down the rabbit hole of, like, finding out what they're about.
Exactly, and that rabbit hole is deep. I've definitely fallen through it and gotten lost for a few hours. Let's talk about hashtags, because hashtags are really important with Instagram. So what makes a great hashtag, one? And then what are the specific hashtags authors should keep in mind when they're posting?
Right. Hashtags, it's one of those things that, you know, there's so many of them out there. There's ones that have, you know, 1 million posts on there. And quite frankly, if you don't have, you know, 50,000 followers, most likely your post isn't going to show up on those, because there's just so many people using that hashtag. So for me, like personally, I try to have a good mix of, you know, ones that have a smaller amount of posts on them, and then go to, you know, some of the bigger ones like Bookstagram. I always will hashtag Bookstagram just because for me it's like, that's my subject matter. That's what I'm doing. So for authors, you know, always hashtag your name. I created Jenn Blogs Books as a hashtag, so every time I post, no matter what it is, it comes up, so someone could literally just look up my name as a hashtag, and every post I've ever made comes up.
Right.
So I think it's very important to always hashtag your name. You know, title of the book, which, you know, to me is common sense, whether it's your publicity company or your publisher, anything like that. I know some people have made up little, like, quotes or sayings that's kind of like their thing. I just read He Will Be My Ruin by K.A. Tucker, and her book, or her hashtag for her book was I Suspect Everyone. because that is kind of like a running theme.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the title. If you haven't read the book, you will not know what that means. But, little things like that. Some authors also create these little, almost like squads. And it's not even about, publicity or marketing. It's mostly just book fans. Mm-hmm. And the one author I've talked about already, Taryn Fisher, she has the Passionate Little Nutcases. That's somehow that we've all been grouped into this. So everything she talks about, people hashtag that all the time. They could be, talking about she's into fashion, so they'll talk about something they bought that she recommended or what, anything like that. And you kind of create your own community inside that Bookstagram community.
That is so fantastic and interesting because she's creating her own little community within the Bookstagram community. That is so strategic and genius.
Yes.
So this is great things for authors to keep in mind. Hashtags are super important, and there are a few out there that are musts. Bookstagram is definitely one of them. I think TBR Pile and Bookshelf is another one.
Yeah, Shelfie, that's another one you can do. I think the maximum is 30 or 40 hashtags per post, and I always max them. So, why not? Why not use all the, ability? Because it's almost like they're little snapshots that's out there.
Right.
So, use everyone you can, and, this way everyone can see you that's out there. Another one that's random is Book Dragon. Instead of people are like, bookworm sounds too timid. I'm a book dragon. That's a new one that's out there.
Ooh, that's a great one.
They're really, you could Google book hashtags, and there are so many. You just got to kind of pick and choose and find what's good for, what you write and the audience you're trying to target.
Absolutely. So, do you think, what's the future of Instagram and the books community? Do you think it's just a fad? Will it go away? Will it get stronger? What's your prediction?
It's tough. Especially with my love of books, of course, I never want to see anything like that go away. Having been in this now almost 2 years, I can say I'm pleasantly surprised that I don't think this is a fad. I think that this community is going to continue to grow just because people who like books like to talk about books. Mm-hmm. And that is exactly what we're doing. Whether it's just a photo, and I know people who will post a photo of books and not even talk about them and just be like, my day was horrible, these are some pretty books, look at them and enjoy kind of thing. Yeah. But I think that because, social media, it's such a huge way to reach so many people. And there are, I've connected with people in India and in Europe. One friend of mine, she's in Italy, and we talk almost every day. So I think that there are just so many people out there who love books, and it doesn't matter what you read. Some people like ebooks, some people like, physical copies. It kind of takes away all that, stigma of what you read, and it's just like, we like books. Yes. So I think that it's going to continue to grow. I think it's an excellent resource for basically free marketing for any author out there. All you have to do is snap some photos and talk about yourself. It's easy to do, but really, I don't see it going away anytime soon. And even with, our biggest complaint is there's been changes to Instagram, always different things in the algorithm and everything else, but still the core is there. Everything else, like Facebook is slowing down with business pages and everything else. You have to work more to reach people. Right. But with Instagram, it's so, people like that instant satisfaction kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And that's what it is. It's a photo and people can see it. And I think that especially for authors, that it's going to just grow as more people try to utilize it.
Well, that's comforting. And we're super happy to hear that. So that's great. And I loved our conversation today. I think that we can go on for hours.
I could definitely do this.
We'll definitely, chat offline about a second follow-up conversation, but that's all we have for today. And I'd like to thank you so much for taking the time to come here to our office. She's in our offices today, yay, listeners, and we've had such a great time with you. So thanks again. And for all of you out there, give her a follow on Instagram. You can reach her at Jenn Egan 26, JENNEGAN 26, and you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Smith Publicity. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Smith Publicity All Things Book Marketing Podcast. To reach us and learn about our many book marketing services, visit www.smithpublicity.com or send us an email to info@smithpublicity.com.